he just was not having any fun at all. And I'm like, well, this sucks because I'm having fun. And, I like being here. And I was like, well, shit, I'm not the guy that's supposed to be here. So
what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode here on You Think, presented by Audiorama. Well, I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody enjoyed their week with their family and loved ones and friends. And we had a busy one in the Olsen house. It was actually nice. We did not have any sports. We had no practices, games. We gave everybody off from our team. So we brought the entire crew out to Dallas. I was able to, which was a super cool experience. I got to call the Thanksgiving Dallas Cowboys game. They played the Giants. So on Thanksgiving afternoon, so we got to bring the entire family, my wife, my kids, my parents, both my brothers, their wives. We all went to Dallas together for the week and went over to the stadium. Obviously, I called the game, and then we came back to the hotel. Awesome spread. All the other members of the crew and their families and everybody was in town, and we got to watch the night game and just chill. And, it was just cool. I grew up, obviously, as we all did, where NFL football on Thanksgiving was just like, that's what was on. Like, that's what you watched, at least in our house. And to be able to call a game that's been called by some of the best broadcasters of all time. Of course, we spent a lot of time on Thursday honoring and celebrating John Madden, who really voiced pretty much all of our Thanksgiving football experiences. It was really cool to be in the booth with my team and call a Cowboys game. So that was really cool. And then spent the rest of the week in Dallas. And then I flew with my oldest son. It was his turn to take a trip with me. So we went from Dallas to Kansas City, got to call the Chiefs game versus the Rams. Kind of a fun game. The Chiefs are really good. The Rams are struggling a little bit, but nonetheless, it was fun to spend some time in Kansas City. I'd only been there one time prior as a player, so great place to watch a game. If you haven't been to Kansas City, it's like going to an SEC football game, tailgating, barbecue pits, smokers, just a really cool scene. So got to watch them and then flew home. So it was a good Thanksgiving in the Olsen house. This week, we are gearing up for the trip we've talked about. We've been leading up to all fall, our Pop Warner National Championship Super Bowl in Florida. You play at Camping World Stadium, go to Universal Studios. They shut down the parks for everybody. It's going to be a really fun experience. So we go on Friday. We play our first game on Saturday. We don't know who we're playing. So that's a little nerve-wracking. It's hard to, we're practicing this week and you don't know who you're playing. So you're just trying to make sure you're organized and have a plan and just have to figure it out once you see the opposing team when the game starts. So that's a little weird, a little different from what we've done all year. But nonetheless, awesome experience for the kids. They have like welcome parties. There'll be teams from all over the country and all the from 10 years old all the way up to 14 years old. Every age group, there's 8 regional champions. So there's 8 teams in each age group that come down in that division. And we'll see how we do. The fact that we're there is nothing short of a miracle. And we're going to go give it our best shot. So we'll have an update for you guys next week. Hopefully we're still playing. And we'll let you guys know how it goes. But we have a really cool guest in store for today. We have Kevin Harvick. Kevin competes full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series, drives the number 4 Ford Mustang for Stewart Haas Racing. Daytona 500 winner back in 2007, has a young son who's, wait till you hear this story about his young son. He's 10, his kind of growing up in the ranks of being a driver himself. And, he's overseas and training in different circuits. Really fascinating to listen to Kevin's unique insight about not only his upbringing as a kid in the world of racing, but now as a father. So really cool conversation, really cool guy, lives here in Charlotte and does a lot here in the community as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation on You Think with Daytona 500 winner, Kevin Harvick. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on You Think.
No problem. Thanks for having me. There's not many more things that I like talking about than youth sports because it's like you say, it is very fascinating, and I am knee deep in the middle of it currently.
All right, well, start there. What does your youth, before we go into your experience as a kid raising through the ranks, in your experience? So what do you mean? What are you doing? What does the Kevin Harvick youth sports experience look like right now?
Yeah, well, I have a 10-year-old, my son Keelan, and he's been really. I guess it started when COVID started because we didn't have anything to do, so we went and started racing, and that has evolved into trying to put him in the best spot to succeed in racing and also get the same learning that he needs. So he's progressed pretty well over the last couple of years, and he's currently on his own in Europe, racing karts over there, trying to make him comfortable being uncomfortable. That's really my wife and I's goal, and grow up just a little bit. I know he's only 10, and I'm sure a lot of people will be like, "What are you doing?" But it's I would consider that the highest level of kart racing, and I think it's probably one of the best experiences that we've put him through so far because I think one of the hard things to manage, growing up is how hard do I push him and how hard do I let him struggle and finding those places to struggle because so many of these kids, whether we see it through the management company or my own kids or other people's kids, whatever it is, the hardest thing to manage is how do we get these kids to understand how to lose? Because we have all the resources, we have all the things that they need to help make them successful while they're young. But how do we put them in real life situations? Because when you become a professional or you get to college or at a higher level, you're going to lose a fair amount, and you need to understand how to deal with that and make yourself better. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we can keep that going.
Why Europe? Like, so I know a lot of the guys. I had Kyle Busch on a few months ago on one of our episodes on You Think, and obviously his son and what he's doing. But I think a lot of their races were both locally here in Charlotte and just within the United States. Why? What is the youth scene over in Europe? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so I think every kid in Europe wants to be a soccer player or they want to be an F1 driver. So when you go to Keelan's in this funny, his birthday is in the middle of the year, so it's in July. So you have this decision to make: do I leave him up a division while he's older, or down a division while he's older, or do I leave him up a division while he's younger? And I'm sure obviously you have kids and you understand that's the age game, and it's for us it's really trying to develop him, and so he progressed a little bit faster than we thought this year. And I wanted to reach out and show him, hey, buddy, there's a little more to this world. If you want to, bite off a little bit more and get your face dragged through the mud a little bit at a different level, we can always go find that. I don't think he quite believed that. And, sending him to Europe, I think our biggest race here, we probably had 45 or 50 carts in his class. Every week there's over 100 or right at 100 in his class, and it's a very professional, different approach. Not that there's anything wrong with the kart racing here, but it's a different level because those kids are trying to achieve a different thing, and for us, we're trying to achieve how do we make him comfortable being uncomfortable, and he doesn't know the language. He doesn't know anybody there. That they're all the mechanics speak Italian for the most part.
Is he in
You're
Italy?
going to different country. Yeah, he's in Italy right now. They were in, let's see, they were in Le Mans 3 weeks ago. So he was the only American over at that particular race. So I
Wow.
just, the more times that we can put him in situations, being comfortable, being uncomfortable in big events, the more comfortable he's going to be as he gets older. Because as if you take it to the top level, you better be ready for it because you're going to be in some pretty intense, high pressure situations, and hopefully you've seen them before.
Yeah. Who's he living with? I mean, obviously you guys are here. Like, who is he over there with?
Yeah, so I'll go. I'll go Monday. Our
Okay.
season ends Sunday, so I'll go Monday. But we have a lady in the office that has worked for us for 20 plus years that has taken him, and then the driver coach that we use here because I found it to be a little more effective if I'm not the everyday coach.
Okay.
So coaching through the coach for me has been much more effective for our personal relationship and being able to let him still have fun and have somebody that can enforce the things that you want to enforce with making him a good person and doing the things that you want him to do. But he just, kids, they're like everybody else. And your kids and my kids probably don't, I know mine doesn't want to hear from me all the time. So, we've just chosen the path to do it through the coach.
Well, I can relate to that because my kids don't think I know anything. And then we'll take them to somebody else and they'll come home from a batting lesson or a practice, whatever, and be like, hey, Dad, Coach so and so told me. I said, yeah, no shit. I told you that 2 months ago. Well,
Yeah.
but I said, well, hopefully at least you listen to him because you sure as hell don't listen to me. But I just find that so like how much longer will he be over there? You mentioned you said he's the only American over there?
Not it. There's probably 3 or 4 there, in this
Interesting.
particular race. So he'll probably go. I don't know. He'll probably race 22 to 25 races over there throughout next year. I'll go with him in December and January to run the events there, and so we've just kind of been dipping our toe in this year just to get him prepared to see if it was even possible. And we went through a little phase of homesick, but the change in his personality has been pretty drastic, just because of the fact that he has a little bit of independence away from his parents. I won't blame it all on mom, but away from his parents, and has actually asked us to come watch. So that to me is a win, just because of the fact that we've got to manage school. He's done a good job in managing school. We homeschool him, and then he does school over there online. So trying to figure all this out and manage this along the way has been a little bit of an undertaking, but I think we've got a pretty good system down now. I just I for me, I'm really excited about the fact that he's learning that there's a much bigger bubble than the bubble that he's
No
seen
doubt.
his dad and his family live in for his whole life, and being able to get on an airplane and go do that yourself is definitely something that I think it will be good for him in the long run.
No doubt. Well, we're going to talk more about the current race scene for the kids. We'll get back to that, but I just want to back up a little bit. I want you to take us back. You grew up in Bakersfield, California, West Coast. Everyone, I know traditionally, the traditional, I mean, we all live here in Charlotte, right? The birth of NASCAR and the home of NASCAR, and there's dirt tracks every highway, everywhere you drive around North Carolina, South Carolina, there's tracks, there's races going on. Just give us a sense of what your experience. You just kind of gave us a little taste of what your 10-year-old son's going through today, but take us back to California, the race scene, your first introduction to it. Like, what did that life look like for you as a young driver, as just a young kid, kind of getting your feet wet on that scene?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of people would think, well, he grew up in California. There's no racing out there, and nobody likes cars. That's not true. If you took Bakersfield, California, and you put it right in the middle of Charlotte, Mooresville, North Carolina, in that area, everybody would fit right in, just because of the fact that it's a racing town. You can race. You can race at the asphalt oval. There's 2 dirt ovals. There's go-kart tracks, motorcycle tracks, RC tracks. You can race anything. So I grew up. My dad was a fireman. Mom was a secretary at the local elementary school. And for kindergarten graduation, my dad got me a go kart. I had been with my dad to the race shops. He worked on his days off. He would work on different race cars, throughout the town, of guys that would come in and race. And so I spent a lot of time around the race cars, and wound up with go kart for kindergarten graduation, and that started in a dirt field. And first day wound up underneath a barbed wire fence, and I guess I liked it enough that we came back, or my dad didn't want me to lay down and give up. So we went back again to the actual go kart track, and really from there. I started racing. So I think I was 8 for 2 years, because you had to be 8 at the time. So I think I started at 6, but I was actually 8 for a couple of years. But so I started at the local go kart track, and we would race as we could afford. Once we got done with the club racing level, then it became a little bit more difficult because Dad had to go to work, and so I would travel with my grandpa or my dad when he was off work, and we started racing up and down the West Coast when we could afford to. And I did that until I was probably, I guess I had to do that until I was 16, because you couldn't race cars until you were 16. And then when I turned 16, I went straight to late model stock cars at my local short track in Bakersfield, California, track that is no longer there, called Mesa Marin. And from there, I really just was fortunate to win races and be in the right spot at the right time, and wound up having a lot of people in town that would help me with my late model. And we built a truck, and ran the first my first race in the truck series in 1995 at Mesa Marin, which is where the truck series started. So really, for me, I went from um, go karts to late model stocks to the regional touring division, and really about I guess 1995 was really when the end of that was all done through the family. racing, and we did everything ourselves. And from that point, I kind of stepped outside the box when I realized that we couldn't afford to go do what I wanted to do. So I went to school for 6 weeks at the local junior college, Bakersfield Junior College, and I came home and I told my mom, I said, this really isn't what I want to do. And she's like, well, that school will be there. Why don't you go figure out if you can do what you think you want to do? So I actually went to work as a mechanic for Wayne and Connie Spears, who were the owners of the only West Coast truck team that ran nationally. And I went to work down there as a mechanic. I guess I was 19, and they paid me $25,000 a year and gave me a credit card to travel with. And I went to work there and hoped that I got the opportunity to drive. And by the end of the year, I had convinced Wayne to, I guess it was the middle of the year, I had convinced him, I guess this would have been 1997. I convinced him to let me drive a West Series regional touring car that he had. And we did pretty good. And then he put me in a truck race in the summer, a second truck, and we beat the other truck. And the next week I was the full-time driver of that truck in 97. And in 98, I ran it full time. And in 99, I went to drive for actually Brad Doherty, owned half of the truck team that I went to drive for. And I bought my first house in 1999, met my wife, soon to be wife, Delana, at the end of 99, and then decided that I was going to go drive for Richard Childress in 2000. I just bought my first house. I had to get a second loan out on my house to buy myself out of my first contract that I got myself into for my truck ride. So I put a second loan against my mortgage, took out a second loan against my mortgage, and lived off my wife's credit cards for 3 months, and went to RCR and started driving in the Busch Series. And then everything happened with Earnhardt in 2001, and I took over for him the second race of the season in 2001. So I really went through all the steps of the ladder system of NASCAR.
It's just really fascinating. The part I want to just hear a little more about is I've always found it so fascinating. So when I used to drive to training camp, we used to drive down 85 towards Spartanburg, and before you get through Greenville and all that, where the big peaches and all that, there was always this dirt track on the side of the highway. And if we would drive down, if it was a Friday night and you were driving either to or home from Spartanburg, it was slammed with people. And I always wanted to one day just pull in and just watch it. But the part I love is at those local tracks, it's parents, it's grandparents, it's uncles, it's guys down the street. You guys are serving as your own pit crew, your own mechanics, you're doing your own work. I want to hear more about that. I want to hear about going with your dad or going with your grandpa and you're fixing your own cars and you're doing your own work and you're pushing your trailer in your own car. To me, that grassroots nature of this sport that now we all see the, fancy cars and the trucks and all the sponsors, at its core, that's really what racing was, right?
Yeah. And look, the grassroots level of it is very different than it was then, but it's very much the same. It's just way more sophisticated, than what it used to be. So look, when I remember when I was 12, 13 years old, we had a box van and a house trailer that we would go to the go-kart trailer, and my dad would be asleep in the passenger seat, and I would drive home. I'd drive home from Riverside and Los Angeles, and I'd just get up in the box van and he'd say, hey, if you get pulled over, just wake me up. And I'd drive home, 3.5 hours, and I'd pull the box van into the house, and we'd get out, and that was it. So that was just part of what we did. So, it was, my grandpa at times would take me around, and I'll never forget, we drove to Kansas one time, and my grandpa would never go over the speed limit. So it was 55 miles an hour. We stopped at every rest area and every Denny's. What I thought we were going to the rest area for was to go to the bathroom. But little did I know until I figured this all out that he was going to have a cigarette and smoke at all these places. So, but we traveled around and we lived in campgrounds, and we built all of our own stuff. We built all of our own cars, and we drove them all to the racetrack. And even all the way up until the time that I left, and even when I worked for Wayne and Connie, when we ran the West car, we had a 1977 Winnebago that had a 30-foot trailer that we would haul behind it, and all the crew guys would pile in there, and we had the time of our life. And the camaraderie and the relationships and things that you had during that time are still relationships that I have today. So it's working on the cars and being in the shop. And that was one thing that I had mentioned earlier about Keelan, and how we started racing was COVID, because you have this community of people that all have the same interest and lifestyle, and we all come from different places. But when you get to that racetrack, it's a great culture to raise your family in. And I think there's a lot of life skills that are, especially for me, learned along the way, whether it's driving that van home or having to work on your own vehicle and figure out how to ask people for sponsorship or whatever the case was. I think I had a checkbook when I was in the fourth grade, and my dad made me handle all the finances of everything that we spent, so you understood how much it costs. So I think the common sense and simple things that were learned along the way are still very much so with the way that grassroots racing works today. It's just very much very there's a lot more science and engineering that goes into it. So it's made it more expensive, but everything's more expensive.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, like, at what stage, you gave a really good description of that entire kind of journey from a young, 6, 7-year-old kid all the way to your time on this Cup Series. When does money really become a factor? Like, at what stage in this progression do you have to say, okay, we can't do this all ourselves anymore. We got to get some sponsors. We got to get some, whether they're local sponsors, regional sponsors. Like, at what stage in that process do you really have to say, okay, if we're going to do this, we need some people to help us out financially?
For me, I was fortunate that I had a dad that he could pretty much make anything. So when we raced karts, my dad would make cart stands and side pods and fairings and anything that the go-kart team would need, and we would trade that for what it would cost us to race. And as we got close to racing a car, he actually built the whole chassis a year and a half before I was old enough to race a car. So I think we did a lot of horse training, and I was fortunate to be in that position. And I think for me, when the money thing really kicked in was probably my first year of late model racing, which I guess that would have been 1993. And I went out and ran my first race and backed it into the wall, and then I think I wrecked 6 out of the 7 races. And the only reason that we didn't race more was because of the fact we couldn't afford to put the car back together. So the next year, I broke one fender, and we won the championship, ran all the races, and I think we won 5, 6, 7 races in the 13 or 14 race season. And I realized really quickly that we didn't have the money to go out and tear the car up every week, because if we tore the car up every week, I didn't get to race as much. So and then when I didn't tear the car up and we won races, we were able to get more people to help us and more people to sponsor us and make things easier as we went along. And then after we got done with the first car, I actually went on my senior trip in 1994. I came home and my car was gone. I asked my dad, I'm like, where did the car go? He's like, well, you won the first 4 races, so there's no reason to race this car anymore. So I sold it, and we're going to go move up to the next division. I said, oh, okay. So we built we built the next division, and my dad soon figured out that the next division was much more expensive. So at a race one day, and this guy, private equity guy, investor guy, comes up and said, "Hey, I want to help you through your career." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he invested in buying cars and trucks and trailers, and we managed all that out of our family shop. And soon he realized over the next year and a half that it was way more expensive too, because he paid to build the first truck that we ran as well. Well, by the end of 96, all the money was gone. And that's when I took the next step to go get a job and, try to do it professionally with real sponsorship. Wayne and Connie Spears, they own Spears Manufacturing, which makes all the PPC pipe fittings, throughout the world. So, but yeah, I guess right in those 2.5 years is really when I realized that, in order to do this right, you've got to have real funding. Otherwise, it's going to be a hobby for your whole life.
That's interesting. So bring us back to now, current day, right? You have a son who's going through it at a young age. similar? Like, is the you mentioned sometimes with the technology and the engineering, is there still, I'm assuming there's even a greater financial burden to race at the young level today, even than there was when you were coming up?
Oh, for sure. And the unfortunate part about all that is you can't forget all the things that you've learned, right? So then now there's just this in my mind. This is how you race. You know how you race on Sunday. This is the expectation that you have for the preparation and what the cars look like, the carts look like, whatever it is. You got to have the right people, and so you just have this. You have this vision in your head of this is just how I race, and um, I have learned again that it's much more expensive than I remember it being because of the fact that now I'm having to pay for it, and so I think racing even at the kids level today is a lot like other sports, right? So you got to have the right coach, you got to have the right competition, and in order to expose them to the things that they need to be exposed to compete at the high level, and what that looks like, and you think that you can. I guess for me, I just figuring out how this puzzle works and how you can push the young kid as hard as you can push them and still have fun and still have a relationship with them is difficult, but the finances of it are it's expensive, and I just there's really no way around that. Racing is just expensive, and we're fortunate to be in the position that we're in to be able to go do it right and how I want to do it, and that's the way we ran our race teams when we had our our race teams in you know 2010, 11, 12. So that's just how we do it, but it's really like every other sport. It's you got to have the right people around it to make it go.
Yeah, and that brings up my next point. Is the experience, I know your son's overseas right now, but just say that with the experience to raising a son who wants to get, or daughter who wants to get in to the race scene here in North Carolina, South Carolina, Bakersfield, California, Vegas, like now in today's world, like would those experiences be similar? Like if I heard another father out on the West Coast today describing his son, his 10-year-old son's, like is there a regional component to all of this, or is everyone pretty much playing the same game by the same rules?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways to do it. It's exactly the same way that I came up. It's obviously going to cost more than what it did then, but you can do it the exact same way that I did it when I came up. Um, but it's like I said earlier. I mean, you know how to do it. You know the path to get there now, and you know the people to do it. You know the right race teams to call. You know the right go kart teams to call, and you go straight to it. And I tell other parents that all the time. You have to be able to do what you can do within your means to not destroy your family, because I've seen this happen time and time again, where people spend everything that they have thinking that they're doing the right thing, and they don't do it properly, and then they destroy their whole life because of the fact that they think that their next kid is going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr., and that's just not the case for everybody. And I think as you look at it, I always tell people, try to be successful at the division that you can afford, and when you can do that, try to figure out how to go to the next division, because you can race it. Every local short track across the country has Friday, Saturday night races. If you're good there, there's some sort of regional touring division that you can run in, whether it's on dirt or asphalt, all over the country. So there is local, regional, national, international. It's literally whatever you choose. There's a price tag that comes with it all, and in the end, you can still get there by having success. It's just a matter of being around the right people and being in the right places. And if you can't afford to go do them all, go do the ones you can afford to do right, and that's more important than just showing up at every one of them.
So again, obviously you have the experience. You've lived this your whole life. We see so many legacy drivers, right? Of course, with Dale, so many guys who grew up in the sport where there's an inherent, forget the financial abilities, just an inherent knowledge that comes with navigating these circuits and whatnot. So what do the parents of kids who want to get into racing and whatnot, but they haven't lived their whole life, they weren't cup drivers, they don't maybe know the scene, like how do they figure it out?
Yeah, so we have we have one young man by the name of Connor Zilich. His dad's a banker. They had some fun in some Mazdas, and but we've been helping him from the management side of things, and I think for him, it's been trying to put him around the right people to be able to see his son be successful, and I think doing your homework as far as who you can trust, who the right people are to be around. There's so many crooks, in whether it's baseball, basketball, football,
No doubt.
coaches,
It's all
racing
the same.
coaches.
It's all the same.
Yeah, and you have to find the right people, and finding people that you can trust, and not going down that path. And that's really what I've tried to coach them on. Let's not go down the path where we sign a contract that we shouldn't sign, or we get a deal that we shouldn't have, or we get a coach that we shouldn't have, and we waste, like 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case is. And you just got to do your homework, and being able to put yourself in a position to where you're around people that you can trust, that are going to do right for your kid, to be able to teach them the skills that they need to have. And that's really the hardest part for anybody to navigate, is that is outside the racing world, is to find somebody that you can trust, that's not just going to take all your money, because that's really what a lot of these people do. They'll sweet talk you into thinking that they know more than they know, and the next thing you know, you're just another number, making their mortgage, and your kid hasn't learned anything, and you're just having a bad experience, and the next thing you know, you're just done with racing because nothing went right, and you spent all your money.
Yeah, but again, you mentioned it. It's really the same story. It looks different. It feels different. The setup different. But that's going on right now across the country in every youth sport, whether it's travel soccer, baseball. Everything has a financial component. Everything costs money. You want your kid to go to a baseball showcase? Sure, you got to pay $600. So
That's
some of
right.
these parents, so there's that financial thread is kind of woven through this entire landscape, and a lot of the conversations we have here are trying to find ways to help educate our fans and listeners and whatnot to don't fall victim to everything you just described, because it's happening across the entire country. I want to come back to your son Keelan and his experience, and you mentioned it earlier. Like, how do you ensure that he's living and he's pursuing his dream? Like, this is something,
Yeah.
do you guys have conversations with him? Is this something you constantly check in and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Because I know I go through that a little bit with my kids. I have two 10-year-olds. They're twins, boy and girl, and then an 11-year-old son, and they play sports and whatnot. And I think they want to do it. And when we do it full throttle. But I also don't ever want them to feel like they have to do things because that's what I did. So
Yeah.
how do you what does that look like for you and your son?
Yeah. So it's pretty funny, because when we started racing, the first thing he told me was, "Dad, I don't want my last name on the go-kart, and I do not want to be number 4." And I was like,
Okay.
"What?
Yeah,
Why not?"
you're at first you're like pissed off, right? You're like,
Oh
what
man,
do you mean? What do you
it
mean?
pissed me off so bad.
Of
And
course.
and the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, he doesn't want to be here because of his name or a number. He wants to just be his own kid. So, in the beginning, man, I was tough on him, and I was pushy, 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 pushy. You got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and he just was not having any fun at all. And I'm like, well, this sucks, because I'm having fun, and I like being here. And I was like, well, shit, I'm not the guy that's supposed to be here. So I think in the beginning, it was more about trying to figure out, how I was going to navigate it than he was, because of the fact that when practice was over, it was throwing a football or riding a bike, and having fun with the other kids. And he'd come back at dark and sleep in a motorhome and get up the next day, and we'd drive again. So we do have those conversations all the time, because especially before we started the Europe stuff, I'm like, look, this is going to be a major undertaking for our family, because we're going to have to change the way that we do school. We're going to have to change the way that we live. You're going to have to live with other people for weeks at a time. Like, this is going to be something that is going to take some time to put together, and it's going to be something that's going to be expensive. So we talked about it, and that's what he wanted to do, and he went through the first couple, and then the third one, he was like, yeah, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. I said, well, buddy, it's too late. You're going.
Yeah.
You committed to this, and you can go until and finish what we've committed to and do the things that you've committed to. And honestly, that was the best thing that we did, was make him go. And I really, to this day, believe that he didn't want to go because he was getting his face dragged through the mud. And it was the first time that he's ever been somewhere and lost and lost and lost and lost and missed a race. And, and he's never experienced anything like that. And my wife and I talked about it. I think a lot of that came from the fact that it was hard. And that's what I was, getting at earlier. I think, a lot of the things that I've learned throughout his process is, man, a lot of these kids that come through youth sports don't lose much because they have the proper coaching and the proper things that they need. He needed to lose, and he needed to lose more, and he needs to continuously lose more in order to learn more. So that really was the moment, that key moment that I knew he wanted to keep going back, because we've never had that conversation again. He ran good the next week, and he's never mentioned not going again. So I do periodically check in.
Yeah.
But that was one moment that we had to really put our foot down and say, you're going to at least finish.
Yeah.
Even if you don't run another race, you're going to finish what you started here.
That to me is the lesson, right? You don't have to do it again. But if you start the season, you are going to roll through it. And at the end of the season, if you don't want to re-sign up for next season, next year, you want to go back out for the team, fine. But you're not going to bail on your teammates. You're not going to bail on your commitment to a lot of people who have sacrificed for you to be in the spot. So kudos to you guys, because I give you a lot of credit for that, because I think those are such valuable lessons for kids. And today's day and age, people are they're very careful. They don't want to tell their kids what to do. And I get it.
But
I get it.
Not me.
I get it.
Not me.
Not me either.
People look at me and they're like, you're really going to do that? I'm like, yeah, he needs to be accountable for his actions, and he needs to be accountable for his performance, and he needs to be accountable. We need more of that accountability. Yeah.
We need more of that.
If they're not doing a good job, you need to tell them they're doing a bad job. Otherwise, they get this false sense of security that being average is okay. We're not here to be average.
You need to come speak at all my teams that I coach in town, because I have a saying with them. I say, if everything's okay, nothing's okay.
Yeah.
Right? This whole thing, hey, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's not okay. Yeah. It's not okay. You did it completely wrong. You didn't do what you were coached.
My favorite thing is he'll yesterday he got me pretty good. I talked to him yesterday, and I asked him, I said, well, how'd it go? He said, good. I said, why not great? I said, you want to be good or you want to be great? He's like, Dad, it went fantastic. He's like, I got you good. Sent me a text. And that's been kind of my saying with him. You want to be good or you want to be great? Because if you want to be good, just keep doing what you're doing. If you want to be great, there's going to be some pretty crappy times that you got to go through, and some things that really aren't that much fun. But that's so true. That's the way it goes.
So what's the long-term vision? Like where does this lead? If you had a magic wand, this leads him to what series? Where is he back in the States? Is he stay overseas? Like what is in the perfect world, this path leads where?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. If you're going to go down an F1 path, you have to do some of this European racing. Really about the time, I guess, he's going to do the Europe stuff, and he's going to run the oval legend car stuff in the United States here. He'll do the Europe stuff in the kart next year, do the legend car here on the ovals. And, I think really for the next, he'll move up to the bigger karts. I guess that would be 2024, and still do his legend car. And he'll do all that in the U.S. in 2024. Really, I guess that would be, let's see, he's 10, 11 next year, 11, 12. So the 12, 13 year is when it starts a little bit dipping your toe in the water with big cars, whether it be late model stock cars, dirt modifieds, whatever that path is, F4, as far as the testing goes. But when he turns 14, so that would be like 2026, that's really when you got to start deciding what that path is, whether it's, stock cars or open wheel cars, whatever it is. I think realistically, for him, unless there's some crazy off the wall, situation that happens, it's going to be in a stock car.
Got it. Got it. But you still have some time to kind of sort all that through.
Yeah. And,
Obviously,
for
because
me,
he's 10. It's just
yeah,
what I find so fascinating is like in our world at 10, playing football, say. So just take my older son's playing football this year. He's 11. He's in 5th grade. Like the next decision is, do you make your middle school football team? And then after
yeah,
that, it's like you go out for your high school football team. Like there is no real decision. There's no paths. There's no circuits. You just play football and then when you get to high school, obviously, then the kids who are more advanced have opportunities to go to college and whatever that journey is. But there's not a ton of decision making,
that's the key though, the more advanced, right?
Yeah.
So, that's what is he mentally ready for as far as competition?
Yep.
What can he comprehend as far as speed, racetracks and different vehicles? What is his maturity level? Because I think a lot of people lose sight of, the honest opinion of the maturity level of your kid. And
No doubt.
that is something that a lot of parents lose sight of is saying, okay, my son's he's just not that mature. And I would tell you that Keelan's he's on that fence of saying, okay, should he go to be racing in the older division or should he be in the younger division? And really, we thought finding more competition was better to keep him in the younger division because we didn't think he was mature enough to really understand what it was like to race against a 13 or 14-year-old.
No
But
doubt.
the sooner you can do that, the better. But man, you can just crush them if they're not mentally mature enough to do what they're doing against the guys they're playing with.
Yeah, we see it all the time. That do you play with your age? Do you play up? I get it. The last thing before I let you go, and again, thank you, Kevin Harvick. Thank you so much for spending time. I find this entire world fascinating, just because it's so new to me. Talk a little bit about. I know you're very passionate about your foundation work back in Bakersfield, California, where you grew up, your hometown, and not all of your passions in the youth sports scene is in racing. So I want to just give you the opportunity because I find it a really cool story. What you told me before the show started about some of the work that you guys do and a lot of the success your foundation is having.
Yeah. So the Kevin Harvick Foundation, everything we do is for kids. We've found a lot of success through our foundation, through sports, because especially at high school, because if they're in high school and they're playing sports, they got to have good grades. They got to show up to school. Especially if they're showing up at school and their sports activity around good coaches, makes a huge impact on all these kids. So I got involved in my high school wrestling I wrestled in high school for all 4 years of high school. And I still talk to my wrestling coach today. I had great coaches, have talked to him, through the years, and had a great experience. Probably the best thing that I've ever done in my life was wrestle those 4 years, because I learned more about myself than probably anything else that I've ever done. But, I think for me, I got involved. I got a letter from the vice principal at North High School in Bakersfield in 2006. It sat in my mailbox, and I didn't even know what it was. And I finally opened it one day, and it was, "We need your help. They want to shut the wrestling program down. Would you be interested in donating $1,200?" So we called the high school, and we're like, $1,200. She was like, "Yeah, they're thinking about shutting the wrestling team down because they can't afford to operate it." I was like, well, here we go. So I went out and we had a fundraiser in the quad, and we raised $80,000. And we put that into a trust for the wrestling team to be able to operate for how long? I don't even think we've spent all the money yet, because now it functions well. But I think at that particular time, I don't think we could fill out a complete varsity and JV team. Over the last couple of years, we've had over 100 kids try out for the program. We sent 2 or 3 kids to college last year. They've been competing for Valley and state championships, throughout the year. But, I go out every once in a while and spend some time with the coaches or go to the school and just kind of check in, because, we still do a lot of stuff, through the wrestling club there in town to make sure that they have uniforms and shoes. And that was really something that we concentrated on, because a lot of kids won't go out for sports because they can't afford to buy shoes. The golf programs that we do with PGA Reach here in North Carolina, we've gone to the Charlotte Mecklenburg School District, and basically any school who wanted it, you can have free clubs, free shoes, free uniforms, and we give the school all this to try to get the kids to come out for golf, because golf is it's even more difficult than wrestling. We've had a huge impact on the wrestling program at home, and it functions on its own, and it's competitive, and lots of kids showing up, a great environment, and so that's been great. Golf has been different, just because of the fact that a lot of kids don't go play golf, and a lot of schools don't have golf teams because they can't afford to buy the clubs and they can't afford to buy the shoes. So we try to put programs together that supply the equipment. And, the PGA Reach does a good job in sending a local pro that is near the school to help the coaches, because a lot of the golf coaches don't know how to play golf. They're just filling the slot because there's nobody to fill the slot for the golf coach. So they go and try to take these kids. So we try to give them, some opportunity to have some coaching. We have a great program through the Charlotte Police Athletic League. I think we have, I think we have 3 or 4 AAU basketball teams fully funded. We have some great coaching that comes into the club to be able to give the kids who can't afford the coaching, free coaching. The police officers are great and do a lot of the coaching themselves and take the kids around. But the more we can do I like doing stuff like that through sports, through our foundation, because it gives kids the opportunity that may not have the opportunity otherwise, and it also gets them out of the bad environment that a lot of them have at home, because they can come play sports, and then when they find a sport that they love, they come to school, and those are the pieces that I like to tie together. So it's great seeing a lot of those sports programs come together, and heck, we've done everything. We built a $1.2 million field behind the Boys and Girls Club here in Charlotte. They have a lot of great facilities that we built around. So we love doing stuff for kids, and
that's awesome.
Programs and fields and whatever it is to give them a safe place to play.
Well, as a lifelong supporter of the youth sports experience, obviously this has been in my blood since I was a kid. This is what I do now as a dad. Obviously we do this show, so it's pretty clear youth sports is super important. So as someone who's just a dad and a youth coach and whatnot, I commend you for that, because the impact you guys are making and the impact that we all can make on kids through their youth sports experience, regardless of what it is, whether it's racing, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whatever it is, wrestling, we can impact these kids' lives in just such incredible ways. Well, Kevin, I know you have a lot going on. I know you have a lot of places that you could be. So for you to take some time and share your story about your family and your upbringing and your experiences in the youth sports scene with us here on You Think is greatly appreciated. And best of luck to your kids. Best of luck to your son racing. Best of luck to you. And we'll be following. Hopefully one day there's a multi-generational Harvicks racing on the Cup Series.
Yeah, that would be great. I enjoy it, and if there's ever anything that I can help with, I love the youth sports category. So just let me know.
You got it. You're going to be on the top of my list of calls. So be careful what you ask for.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with 2007 Daytona 500 winner Kevin Harvick. The part I found so fascinating, just now as a father raising kids in different sports here, soccer and football and basketball and baseball, to listen to Kevin talk about the journey that his son is currently on, as an aspiring driver, not quite sure which circuit or which, direction could go, Indy, you could go open wheel, you could go traditional stock car like we're accustomed to seeing here in the States. But just to hear him tell the story of his son being overseas, racing in some of the European circuits, and just the experience and the maturity that he's grown and developed is a really fascinating insight into a world that I don't know a ton about, but it's obviously very popular here in the North Carolina area and kind of the home of NASCAR. So appreciate Kevin for coming on. I hope you guys enjoyed that and found it as fascinating as I did. And Kevin's a great dude. Like I said, he lives here in Charlotte, does a ton in the community, really interesting, successful guy in his own right. And now navigating it as a father, I can relate to a lot of the stories and concerns that he told. So appreciate Kevin for joining us on You Think. At this time, as you all know, we are going to bring in Tasha. Tasha, how was it? Tasha Babers, obviously our producer. How was it having your dad, like going back now and listening to the last episode? Like, having your dad on last week was cool, wasn't it? Seeing all the clips on social.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to send to my family group text and then harass my father.
What was your family feedback? Like, what did everybody think?
They were just like, oh my goodness. Oh, Dino. He's a character. So it's always interesting.
Has he always been a character?
He's always been a character, yes. This has been interesting. Yeah, it was
so what
great.
Do you got
though.
for us?
So yes, we have a really good questions. This one's kind of sad and interesting. Sarah from Instagram says, "My son is being bullied on his football team, and my heart breaks for him. So any advice on how to talk to the coaches about it without being a helicopter parent?"
Yeah, this one's hard. I think, especially in today's day and age, we're hazing and really creating positive, culture and environment and locker room is so critical at all ages. Whether it's at a young age in Pop Warner all the way up through, college. I mean, we talked to your dad about just how important culture is and guys buying in and feeling part of something goes such a long way beyond just their talent is feeling a part of the greater whole. So in regards to this, I guess I have a few questions. I'd be curious to know how old the child is. If the child is young, middle school or down, you have to get involved, right? Especially if they're being bullied, if it's becoming dangerous, if it's becoming, super negative, whether it's emotionally or physically, God forbid. Like either way, I think as a parent, it seems to have been continuing for long enough that she submitted the question, I think you have to get involved. I think anytime you feel like your son or daughter is being treated poorly and it could cause them either physical or emotional harm, there is a fine line between not wanting to be a helicopter parent. I get that. But when it comes to the safety and the wellness of your child, you have to get involved. If this is an older child, I'm speculating. If there was steps taken that your high school son or daughter, in this case, son, went and talked to his coach, tried to address it with the players and tried to advocate for themselves and it's still not working, yes, you still have to get, even though you want your child to fight for themselves, they're high school, they're older, you have to get involved. Anytime you're talking about the mental well-being, the physical well-being of your child, as much as you want them to advocate for themselves, you have to go speak to the coach. I would be surprised if the coach was aware of the bullying and decided not to stop it. If he was aware of it and has let it go on, then there's a whole nother conversation to be had about what's going on at this program. But I think the coach needs to be addressed. I think you need to find time to go speak with him, be honest, be up forward, say, hey, listen, I got my son. He tried to advocate for himself. He tried to address it. It's not working. It's almost making it worse. Your child should not have to fear being part of a team. That doesn't mean they don't have to earn their stripes. They don't have to be held accountable. Like all that stuff's going to happen, but it should not be to the point where it's considered bullying, where it's becoming harmful and potentially dangerous.
Have you experienced that as a player or a coach on your teams?
When growing up, when we were in high school, I remember being the freshman, sophomore, and there was and when I say hazing, it wasn't like some of these horror stories. We'd have to carry the seniors' shoulder pads, or we'd have to be in charge of cleaning up the field after practice. Like there was kind of a rite of passage between, what lockers you were able to have in the locker room. Only the seniors could have the ones in the middle. So there was kind of like a rite of passage process of growing and earning your stripes and coming up as a younger player, whether it's in high school or in college. In college, they shaved our heads. I don't know if they do that anymore.
Wait,
all freshmen
what?
had to shave their heads. It's a great picture. You could probably find it on the internet. But no, I was never around a team that was like physically or emotionally like really harsh. It was more tradition. It was more earning your stripes and kind of carrying your weight as a young player, but it never turned over to being physically harmful or emotionally harmful. No.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
did not look great with a bald head. I have a big head. Didn't look great bald.
I can't wait to see that. Our next question is from Nick from Charlotte. She said, I saw that Ryan has his own pod and they love that. How did you guys get the idea to get into the podcast world together?
Yeah, so it's been cool. So also under the Audiorama that you guys hear us obviously mention a lot here, under the Audiorama umbrella, we have a bunch of different projects that are either released or in the works. And Ryan, who's a partner, and I, who's a partner with me and Vince and our team at Audiorama, he partnered up with Audible and in conjunction with the Thursday Night Football package that Amazon, which is Audible, they did a show called Block Forever, and Ryan goes around and it's centered from like the perspective of an offensive lineman, kind of the forgotten guys of the team, but probably the most critical component of a team. And he just interviews all sorts of, players, coaches, past players, current, and just does it from a different perspective where we hear the voice and the stories of what it takes, what the days were like as an offensive lineman in the NFL. And Ryan's got a really good way of storytelling and weaving it in to the conversation. So it's gone really well. It was a huge project, one of our biggest things that we've so far launched in the first year of Audiorama being in existence. And to partner with a group like Audible for Ryan to create and present Block Forever was a really cool opportunity. So we have other projects coming down the pipeline that we're really excited about, and we're going to see what the future holds for Audiorama. But yeah, Block Forever was the next show after this one. So it's been a fun build.
Nice. And then our last audience question is Bill from Instagram. He knows that your daughter plays soccer. Have you been watching the World Cup? And do you need a bar to watch it from? That's a great question.
A bar to watch it from sounds incredible. I don't know how many bars I'm going to find myself in tonight. I am going to try to watch the game here this afternoon. I watched the American game, the U.S. game versus England on Friday. I think everybody watched that. I did not catch our first game against Wales. I was in and out of the house. I saw it was on, and I didn't watch it. Obviously, I know we tied. I will watch today. The fact that it's win or go home makes it very exciting. Anytime America, whether it's a World Cup, male or female, whether it's the Olympics, I don't care if it's curling, basketball, like anytime the U.S. has a U.S. represented team, like I try to watch the sport. Whether I care or not about the sport, I just like supporting when our country goes out on the international stage. So yeah, I'm rooting for, obviously, the U.S. to win today. I almost feel like if we can't beat Iran in soccer, I'm not sure what we're doing. Like, I'm not sure what we're doing as a country, but we need to reevaluate our approach to international, events, because I don't know a lot about soccer, but I feel like the United States should be able to beat Iran.
Yeah, we need more kids in development. Skip said that a couple weeks ago.
I guess. It's just hard to believe that the best 20 soccer players in Iran could potentially be better than the top 20 soccer players in America. I don't know a lot about it, but that just seems hard to believe. So hopefully we come out and we beat them. We advance to the round of 16 and advance out of pool play. But I heard that that's not like a guarantee. I guess Iran's pretty good, right?
I know. We need to watch.
That's scary.
USA. I get so psyched when I watch USA. I love watching.
Well. I like the Women's World Cup better. I'm going to be honest.
He said it.
I like it better. The team competes. Like, I think watching a team that could potentially win the whole thing is obviously exciting. I don't know if anyone imagines the U.S. winning it. I support the boys. I want them to win. I want them to win the whole thing. So we got to beat Iran. That's the bottom line. You got to beat Iran.
We got to focus on
fellas. Let's go, fellas. Beat Iran. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, that's it for all the fan questions today. And we'll see if the USA team advances. You can keep submitting fan questions on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at YouThink or Greg Olson.
Well, appreciate you guys. Thanks as always for the questions. Tasha, thanks for joining us. And continue to rate, review, subscribe. And we look forward to following up on a lot of things on the next episode here on You Think. We'll have a lot to report back on. So we'll see you guys next week.